Analysis of perceptions of socioeconomic prosperity in Venezuela.
The purpose of the research is to determine what factors contribute to Venezuelans' perception of prosperity. Simple and hierarchical regression analysis will be conducted using data from the Latino Barometer of 2007 for Venezuela.
Our independent variables for this simple regression are education, income, and support for the president. For the hierarchical regression, confidence in the government will be introduced as a control variable. The dependent variable is an index comprised of 5 indicators of socioeconomic prosperity, which is reliable as evident by its alpha score above 0.7. While the indicator safety would increase the score if deleted, it has been kept in because safety is an important measure of socioeconomic prosperity. Our rationale for our research is based on academic work on politics and economic development in Latin America. Scholars have found that alternative models of development put forward by leaders such as Chavez have proven to be popular with the dispossessed, which view these policies as helpful. Specifically, Davis suggests that masses have demanded greater social spending. These demands are supported by Green's argument that neoliberal reforms produce mass discontent and mistrust in the government, plus calls for inclusive development. Furthermore, Rice suggests that Chavez has harnessed this discontent by claiming to address these concerns, thus securing popular support. Additionally, Silva posits that leftist leaders have proven to be popular because they put forward a more inclusive model. Finally, Veltmeyer adds that these policies have been well received by the poor who were harmed by market reforms.
Based on the literature, we hypothesize that increased education will decrease perceived prosperity. This is based on the research that suggests that there has been increased social spending. If education is more accessible, then more people should have knowledge of the domestic situation and the problems facing the country, leading to a negative effect on prosperity. Our second hypothesis is that increases in income lead to increased perceptions of prosperity. This is based on the claims that leaders such as Chavez are pursuing more inclusive development policies. Thus, increases in income may be attributed to such policies, leading to a higher prosperity score. Our third hypothesis is that increased support for Chavez increases perceived prosperity. This is because the more a person supports Chavez, the more they may think that he is having a positive effect on development via his new policies. Lastly, the fourth hypothesis is that when controlling for a person's confidence in the government, an interpretation effect will be observed, as confidence in the government will mediate the effects of other independent variables. This echoes the research that suggests a high level of mistrust in the government. These are the overall results for the simple regression analysis. The R-squared value of approximately 0.38 shows that this model is a good predictor of perceived prosperity, as it accounts for about 38% of the variation in perceived prosperity. Furthermore, the model is statistically significant as the F-score indicates that the results are not likely due to chance. Lastly, the model has no problems with multicollinearity, as every variable is safely above the trouble point of 0.2.
In relation to H2, the results show that there is no significant relationship between education and perceived prosperity. Going back to the literature, these findings don't support the argument that education levels reflect the addressing of social concerns via increased accessibility and spending. The results pertaining to income show that there is a moderate and significant relationship between one's income and perceived prosperity, which supports our second hypothesis. Looking at the beta values, increases in income result in slight increases in perceived prosperity. These findings support the argument in the literature that presidents like Chavez have enacted more inclusive economic policies that have improved the livelihoods of the dispossessed.
The results pertaining to support for Chavez reveal that there is a strong and significant relationship between a person's support for Chavez and their perceived level of socioeconomic prosperity, which supports our third hypothesis. The beta value of about 0.6 shows that this is the variable that has the most influence on perceived prosperity. These findings support the arguments in the literature that Chavez has gained mass support from the poor because they believe him to be addressing their concerns. Thus, how much a person supports Chavez is stronger determinant than education or income.
The overall results for the hierarchical regression show Model 1 in comparison to Model 2. While 1b is the original model, 1a shows education on its own to see if the other variable were suppressing its effects, but this was not the case. Overall, after controlling for confidence in the government, the R-squared value increased considerably and the new model remains significant as well as presenting no multicollinearity issues.
Taking a closer look at the models, the highlighted cell shows that education remains insignificant even on its own. The arrow pointing to the R-squared value shows that it explains virtually no variation.
The blue arrows point to the comparison of beta values between models 1 and 2. In addition, it compares the R-squared values of both models. On the subject of beta values, after controlling for the effects of confidence in the government, it is evident that these values decreased by more than a third, while income and support remained significant. This shows an interpretation effect when adding the control variable. The results are congruent with Green's argument insofar as the public remains mistrustful of the government. Thus, while income and support continue to have a positive effect on perceived prosperity, that effect is mediated by a person's level of confidence in the government. Moreover, comparing Model 1's R-squared value with Model 2's, it is clear that Model 2 explains a considerably higher amount of variation. Going by the theory that upper limit of variance is alpha squared, Model 2 explains almost all the variation that is possible.
The highlighted cells show the effect that the control variable has on perceived prosperity. After introducing this variable, confidence in the government became the best predictor of perceived prosperity. The categories little confidence and no confidence are now the strongest predictors compared to the other independent variables. Moreover, the green arrow shows that the order of confidence levels are in a logically ascending order insofar as their effect on the dependent variable. The less confidence a person has, the greater the negative effect on the perceptions of prosperity. This again ties into the literature as it shows that the mistrust in the government remains an issue.
In conclusion, H1 was not supported by those results, but every other one was. Additionally, these results reveal that while other factors have predictive force, the fact that mistrust in the government remains high, so the confidence in the government abilities remains in question, which is consistent with the literature and explains why it is a strong predictor.
These findings support the argument that the dispossessed have demanded an alternative model of development, which explains the appeal of Chavez and other left-turn leaders in the region. Lastly, education's insignificance may be unique to Venezuela. Nonetheless, the findings are against what the academics say about education's effect on society, and thus further research should be done to explain this unexpected result.